Jodie Foster is one of those rare names that seems to carry its own sense of weight and wonder. Even spoken softly, it evokes intelligence, talent, and a career shaped by decades of unforgettable performances. Yet behind the awards, the acclaim, and the polished public image lies a story that is far more complex than the world often realizes. Her journey is not simply the story of an actress who succeeded early, but of a human being who grew up under relentless attention, endured pressures that most children could never imagine, and learned how to protect her inner life while living in the brightest glare of fame. From childhood prodigy to respected filmmaker, from private grief to quiet joy, Jodie Foster's life reflects resilience, strength, and a kind of dignity that has never depended on spectacle. Childhood brilliance and an unusual beginning. Born Alicia Christian Foster on November 19, 1962 in Los Angeles, Jodie entered the world already surrounded by complexity. She was the youngest of 4 children, raised by a mother who carried the weight of parenthood alone after Jodie's father left before she was born. Money was often tight, and stability was something her mother fought hard to create. Even in those early years, it became clear that Jodie was different. Her intelligence seemed almost startling. She spoke unusually early, read far beyond her age, and absorbed language and ideas with remarkable speed. Teachers noticed, siblings noticed, and soon the entertainment industry noticed too. While other children were learning through play, Jodie was learning through responsibility, her childhood already beginning to blur into something more demanding than most people experience until adulthood. Fame arriving before childhood could fully form. At just 3 years old, Jodie was discovered and cast in a commercial, her face quickly becoming familiar to millions. What looked charming from the outside was, in reality, the beginning of a life shaped by schedules, expectations, and professional discipline. Within a short time, she appeared in dozens of commercials, earning more than most adults and carrying the unspoken hopes of her family's financial future. Film sets replaced playgrounds, auditions replaced carefree afternoons, and her innocence began to slip quietly into responsibility. By the age of 5, she was already appearing regularly on television, impressing directors with her focus and maturity. Even then, she later reflected on how she often felt like the adult in the room, a child expected to perform with composure long before she fully understood what it meant to simply be young. The hidden cost of growing up. Too soon success came early, but it carried a heavy emotional cost. Jodie's childhood was not defined by freedom, but by the discipline required to navigate an industry that demanded maturity. She worked on challenging film sets where fear and discomfort were sometimes part of the job. In Napoleon and Samantha, she was injured during a scene involving a trained lion, an experience that left emotional scars long after the physical wounds healed. Soon after, she returned to work, praised for professionalism, though the reality was that courage was being demanded from someone far too young. Injuries and exhausting schedules became part of her normal, and Hollywood's applause often masked the deeper truth. Child stardom asks for resilience before a child even knows what resilience is. Taxi Driver and the Weight of Darkness. In 1976, Jodie took on one of the most defining roles of her life, playing Iris in Taxi Driver. The performance was extraordinary, earning her major recognition, but it also placed her in the middle of a film that explored disturbing themes far beyond childhood innocence. Safeguards were in place, yet the emotional burden was real. She delivered a performance of depth and vulnerability that stunned audiences, but it came at the cost of being exposed early to the darker edges of storytelling and fame. The role immortalized her talent, but it also marked a turning point where childhood became something increasingly distant, replaced by the responsibilities of artistry and the demands of an industry that rarely pauses to protect youth. Adolescence spent in professional survival. As other teenagers experienced ordinary milestones, Jodie's adolescence unfolded through scripts, film sets, and public attention. Disney films brought her lighter recognition, while other roles demanded emotional maturity far beyond her age. She became known not only for talent, but for professionalism, the young actress who could be trusted to deliver. Yet behind the scenes was a teenager who had already been shaped by years of pressure. Childhood had not ended naturally for her. It had been taken over gradually by expectation. leaving her to grow up faster than she ever should have needed to. Finding independence through education. In the early 1980s, Jodie made a decision that revealed her desire for something deeper than Hollywood. She went to Yale University. Education became her refuge, a place where she could be more than a performer. Yet even this chapter was disrupted by a frightening public incident when an obsessed individual attempted a violent act claiming it was meant to impress her. Overnight, her privacy was shattered. Security became part of daily life, fear followed her across campus, and normal student experiences became nearly impossible. Still, she persevered, completing her studies with honors, proving that her intellect was not simply a childhood trait, but a lifelong foundation. Yale was not just a degree. It was a declaration that she would not be defined solely by fame. A resurgence forged through strength. After graduation, Jodie faced professional uncertainty. Hollywood, often unforgiving, questioned whether she could transition fully into adult roles. Rejections came, projects stalled, and she endured the harsh reality that even extraordinary talent does not guarantee smooth success. Then came The Accused in 1988, a role that demanded raw courage. Her performance was fierce, unflinching, and deeply human, earning her first Academy Award. She followed it with The Silence of the Lambs, portraying Clarice Starling with intelligence and quiet strength, winning her second Oscar and solidifying her place as one of the most formidable actors of her generation. These triumphs were not just professional victories. They were evidence of resilience built through years of hardship, discipline, and survival. Protecting a private life in a public world. Despite global fame, Jodie Foster has always valued privacy above spectacle. While many celebrities turned their personal lives into public stories, she built hers quietly. She raised 2 sons with fierce devotion, shielding them from paparazzi and ensuring they could grow up with as much normalcy as possible. Her motherhood reflected a deep awareness of what she herself had lost as a child. She was determined that her children would not inherit the same relentless scrutiny. Her love for family became one of her greatest sources of grounding, proving that her life was never solely about career, but about creating a sanctuary away from the spotlight. Authenticity and new beginnings. In time, Jodie stepped into a more open chapter of life, speaking honestly about her identity with grace rather than drama. Her authenticity resonated deeply because it was never performative. It was simply real. She later married Alexandra Hedison, building a life rooted in love, creativity, and peace. Together, they created a home that prioritized quiet joy over celebrity noise, a place where daily routines mattered more than public attention. With Alexandra, Jodie found a sense of freedom that came not from fame, but from living honestly and tenderly on her own terms. Grief, loss, and the strength to continue. Even with personal happiness, life brought inevitable sorrow. The loss of her parents carried profound emotional weight, especially the passing of her mother, who had been the cornerstone of her entire life. Her mother had guided her through every storm, and her absence left a deep ache. Yet grief did not break Jodie's spirit. Instead, it became another chapter in a life defined by endurance. She carried forward the lessons of courage and love that had shaped her from childhood, proving that resilience is not about avoiding pain, but about continuing through it with grace intact. Legacy of quiet power. Today, Jodie Foster remains a figure of rare integrity. She chooses projects carefully, prioritizes balance, and continues to create meaningful work without chasing constant attention. Her legacy is not only in awards or iconic roles, but in the way she has lived, with discipline, authenticity, compassion, and strength. She has shown that greatness is not forged in comfort, but in endurance, and that the most remarkable stories are often the ones lived quietly behind the spotlight. Jodie Foster's greatest achievement may not be any single performance, but the life she has built, a testament to resilience, dignity, and the enduring power of being fully, courageously human.